Uncle Dan.
Yeah.
Again, we're Douglas. We're going through some shit here on the show, but we're going to be all right.
Look, we're going through some shit in this country.
Well, I was going to say, I pay no attention to politics, like none.
Right.
But for some reason, for the first time in like 4 years, I found myself dancing in the shower this morning.
Interesting.
Like,
yeah,
I'm quite serious.
Almost able to breathe.
Yeah, I felt like something had changed.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah. For those who are literally hiding under rocks, we should let you know that the United States of America did just have an election, and after several very tense days and weeks and months and years, the whole world can heave a sigh of relief that the country with the world's largest nuclear stockpile will soon no longer be run by a petulant, narcissistic, neo-fascist, inflatable circus peanut.
Yes, and thank you so much for like fucking Paris and German cities ringing your church bells in celebration. That was something. Yeah.
When the whole world breathes a sigh of relief when you lose your job, maybe reconsider your priorities.
Thanks for remaining our friends through some difficult moments here, guys.
Right. Yeah. All right. So the election of 2020. It was dominated by issues like the coronavirus and whether or not it is, a real thing that should be addressed by somebody.
Yeah.
And Black lives and the mattering thereof.
Yeah.
Oh, and the obvious conspiracy by the leftists to force everyone to accept the mark of the beast in the form of an implanted RFID microchip and the legalization of pedophilic child trafficking cabals. So, issues on both sides.
Yeah.
One of the key issues that has marked the Trump presidency has been immigration and who shouldn't be allowed into our once apparently great country and who definitely shouldn't. So here's a good rule of thumb for who Trumpers would let into the country. If they're white, then we might, and if they're brown, turn them down. Or more specifically, if they use words like "Donde está" or "Allahu Akbar," then yeah, it's a no from me, dog.
Yeah.
So this kind of anti-immigrant sentiment is not new to the Americas.
How the hell you say?
No. Honestly, those feelings go all the way back to the 1490s Hispaniola. But well after that first crop of immigrants insinuated themselves onto this continent, the idea of foreigners bad has popped up fairly regularly in our history. I want to talk about a time in America where there was a lot going on. It's the middle of the 1800s, and the United States has a lot on its plate. It was a new country, and we really hadn't worked out a lot of the kinks yet. Lewis and Clark scoped out all the land west of the Mississippi, and the U.S. was like, we'll take it! So we had a little war with Mexico over who got to rightfully kill all those Indians that were there first. And some folks in the North were getting really grumpy about the Southerners cheating at capitalism by using unpaid labor. Oh, and they were starting to get a little suspicious that Africans might actually be people, with rights and stuff.
Well, that's been resolved.
Right?
Yeah.
But at that moment in history, everyone had a lot on their minds. The major political parties at the time were the Democratic Party and the Whig Party. Now, I don't have time to go into the complexities of those parties, but when I say Democrats, they were not at all related to the Democrats that we know and try to love today.
Yeah.
The Whigs were actually a pretty strong party. In 1849, for example, their candidate, Zachary Taylor, a hero of the Mexican-American War, won the presidency, which is really weird because he kind of hated politics and had, this is true, never voted in his life.
Really?
Really.
So he was the Kanye of that election.
Yeah, exactly. But he was a war hero, old, rough and ready.
Yeah.
He was strong and powerful, and oops, nope, he's dead. 18 months into his presidency, he kicked the bucket, succumbing to what seems to be heat stroke. Then his vice president, Millard Fillmore, took over and signed the Fugitive Slave Act, and everybody was in a clamor, and shit completely fell apart for the Whigs. Now, a lot of people worked to fill that void. The Republican Party arose on a largely anti-slavery platform, again, not connected to the current Republican Party, even though they're mostly still against slavery. Mostly. But slavery wasn't the only issue of the time. There was another issue that was burning in the U.S. You see, the American democracy experiment had gained fans all over the world, and all over Europe in particular. Popular uprisings called for an end to the top-down rule of the millennia past and demanded that the people get a voice. And when that didn't happen, disaffected people flocked to the United States by the thousands. And thus began the terrifying scourge, the worst thing to hit the United States since okra. It was the Catholics! Yeah, you thought American religious hatred was about Muslims? Psh, they're Johnny-come-latelys.
Yeah.
No, it's Catholics. Those were the real plague.
Yep.
Now, fear of Catholics in the United States was not new. Quote-unquote founding father Samuel Adams wrote a lovely screed in the 1700s about how important religious tolerance was, except for Catholics. Obviously, we can't tolerate them. Yeah. They have a pope who could tell them what to do. And what if they then take power? We'd all be subject to a pope. So, of course, he was more fresh from Europe when Protestant clashes with the pope were very real. So, but still, they hated the Catholics.
Yeah.
The reasons for hating Catholics were different in the mid 1800s. This was because all of those Europeans flowing into the United States from Germany and Ireland were awful. They weren't the good Germans and Irish. They were drug dealers. They were criminals. They're rapists. They're taking our jobs.
Yeah.
And they were Catholics. So in the 1840s, nativism became the watchword. As a matter of fact, a political party known as the Native American Party formed, which was all about promoting the rights of Native Americans. And of course, by Native Americans, I mean white people who were born here. Yeah. Obviously, what did you think I meant?
Can't mean anything else.
No. You know, Native Americans, like you and me, Mark.
Yeah, like us.
Yeah. So by 1844... anti-Catholic sentiment was so high that there were riots. For instance, people in Philadelphia, hi Philadelphia, we like you now.
Hey Philly.
But of course this was going to be Philadelphia. Were so fed up with new rules that allowed things like, for example, Catholic children to leave Bible study in school because the public schools used the Protestant King James Bible rather than the Catholic one. They were so upset about this that one crusader in Philly at the time, a man named Charles Louis Levin, or Levin, that's right, he was Jewish because everything is complicated, he ended up running for office on an anti-Catholic platform, which
as a
then
Jew
led,
in America.
Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Which led to rioting, which then led to Levin becoming our country's first Jewish member of the House of Representatives. Progress!
Something, I guess.
Yeah. Well, by the 1850s, groups started forming to tackle the Catholic problem. Secretive groups. Very secretive groups. The first rule of the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner is that you do not talk about the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner. So much so that if you were asked about it, you were to say that you knew nothing. These orders started in New York, but very soon spread to every major city in the country. And despite the fact that nobody knew anything about it, people started to get wise to what was going on. And pretty soon, the know-nothings were America's worst-kept secret. And that derisive nickname, the know-nothings, actually stuck.
So that's where that came from? I knew about the party, but I guess I never knew where the name came from.
Yeah. Yeah, literally, they were all supposed to keep everything hush-hush and just say that they knew nothing. And they got popular fast. In 1854, Know-Nothings were so big that they swept the state elections in Massachusetts to the tune of all but 3 of the 400 seats in the Massachusetts state legislature were Know-Nothings.
Whoa.
And, true to their name, only 35 had any legislative experience.
That was in Massachusetts.
Correct.
Which is so funny because, now Massachusetts you just think of as one of that's like the Catholic state.
Right.
That
exactly.
and Louisiana are like the Catholic states, right?
Yeah. But probably because there were so many Catholic immigrants coming in, which is why everybody was voting for people that hated Catholics as much as they did.
Yeah.
They're basically the only qualifications that most of these Massachusetts politicians had was that they hated Catholic immigrants the right amount. More violence happened in 54. Know-Nothings tarred and feathered a Catholic priest in Ellsworth, Maine. And in Bath, Maine, an anti-Catholic riot ended in a Catholic church being burned. In 1855, the national elections produced 43 representatives who were Know-Nothings.
Wow.
Who decided that they should probably have an official name, so they ended up calling themselves, quote, the American Party, officially, which is kind of a dick move to claim that you're the only party of America.
Sure, but baller. It's a baller move.
Yeah, but they didn't want to come right out and call themselves the if you weren't born here, then get the fuck out party. So it's clunky.
Yeah.
It's clunkier. In 1855, also it was a big year for Catholic/immigrant hatred. In Kentucky, there was a tight governor's race. A fun little conspiracy theory started going around that there was that the massive new German and Irish populations, who were suddenly a third of the population of Louisville, were going to commit voter fraud by voting.
Voting, huh?
Yeah, which actually many of them didn't have the right to do yet because they weren't citizens. But this led to, quote, Bloody Monday, where mobs of Protestants attacked the German and Irish Catholic neighborhoods, killing 22, injuring just scores of people, and inflicting massive property damage. Wow. Only 5 people were indicted in all of that. 0 convictions, 0 compensation to victims. The American way.
Same as it ever was, Dan.
Yes, indeed. Anyone who's trying to draw parallels between this and now is up a tree. As far
You're
as
a
I'm
fool.
concerned. Silly.
Yeah.
Silly stuff. In 1856, there was another big presidential race. Know-Nothings run Millard Fillmore, who had not been chosen by his own party to rerun for office after being president after Taylor died. He had already been president. Not a bad idea to nominate him. Interestingly, they may have nominated him without asking his permission. He was out of the country at the time and had never shown any allegiance to them or even attended any Know-Nothing gatherings before. But he got back, they told him about it, and he wanted to be president and really liked the fact that the Know-Nothings were pretty much silent on the slavery issue because, that gotten him in some trouble before. And it had basically destroyed his former party. So he was pretty quiet about immigration, and instead focused on keeping the Union together and accepted the nomination. His strategy didn't work. He came in third after the Democratic candidate Buchanan, who won, and the Republican Fremont. Fillmore narrowly lost several southern states. In the end, he had 21% of the popular vote and got only 8 electoral college votes from cute little Maryland.
Oh, good for you, Maryland.
Yeah. And here's the thing. In the middle of the 1800s, the strategy of being wishy-washy on slavery and only caring about hating Catholics, as strange as it may seem, was not destined to do well. And the Know-Nothings started to fall apart faster than the Whigs did. As Abraham Lincoln wrote in a letter dated 24 August of 1855, "I'm not a know-nothing, that is certain. How could I be? How could anyone who abhors the oppression of Negroes be in favor of degrading classes of white people? Our progress in degeneracy appears to me to be pretty rapid. As a nation, we began by declaring that all men are created equal. We now practically read it, all men are created equal except Negroes. When the Know-Nothings get control, it will read, all men are created equal except Negroes and foreigners and Catholics."
Wow. Okay, Abe.
Yeah, he went on to say, "When it comes to that, I should prefer emigrating to some country where they make no pretense of loving liberty. To Russia, for instance, where despotism can be taken pure and without the base alloy of hypocrisy."
Oh my God.
So,
like, the more things change.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel? It just feels like history. You know, it doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes.
It definitely rhymes.
Yeah, so the Know-Nothings in the South were pro-slavery. In the North, they were anti-slavery. It turned into a big mess because when your party is founded on just hating one group of people, not everybody can line up on the other issues.
I'm just thinking about Republicans in one state yelling "stop the count" and in another state saying "keep counting." Yeah. I don't know why that came to mind. It's just a weird
that's
thing.
weird.
Just happened in my head.
I don't know what that would be about. But
sorry,
yes,
I interrupted you. Continue.
Eventually, quite almost as quickly as they ascended, this briefly very powerful party disintegrated, and we were left with Republicans and Democrats, who I can't emphasize enough, have no bearing on the current Republican Party and Democratic Party.
Nope. It's everything. History ended yesterday and started again tomorrow morning. That's just how it is.
Yeah, exactly. So
we live in a beautiful Ghazi now.
So there you go. I just wanted to talk about a time not unlike our own when hatred ruled the day briefly, and then as quickly as they arrived.
Boy, that name is so hilariously on the nose, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just incredible.
Yeah, and it's, from what I can tell, they kind of embraced it. It's almost like the deplorables.
That's true.
Owned their own shit for a minute, and then we moved on.
It's too bad that Four Seasons Total Landscaping didn't exist back then, so that they could announce their legal comeback. In 18 whatever. So wow, that's cautionary tales, people.
Yes, indeed. Those who don't know their history are condemned to watch the idiots repeat it.
Yeah, are literally going to fucking repeat it. So wonderful. I'm glad things went a certain way, so this story doesn't seem as terrifying as it would have a few days ago.
Right. Oh, believe me, I waited until I knew for a fact that we were going to be okay before I used this as my topic. But there we are. Good news. Our next president's not going to be orange, and Catholics. And
he's a Catholic.
Now the Catholics have taken over our whole Supreme Court. So
and the presidency.
Look how far they've come.
Yeah, good. You've come a long way, baby. Well, with that, let us move on.